Okay, well, good evening. It is the 15th, so we're in chapter 15. Welcome to Welcome with Wisdom, and we have our first guest here for the program. Hi, Kendall. And you're the first guest I've had on my restream ever, other than, well, I mean, over the internet. I mean, I did have Kyle in the studio here, but Kendall is someone that will be, he's had a fair bit to do with our planning process here, and he's going to be a big part of things moving forward. We'll be doing some podcasts together on various topics. So good to see you, Kendall. Where are you currently located?
Based in Sydney.
Okay, and you were a bit late getting on, and that was because
Storms down here today.
some storms.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure that our live is going. Just a second. I always like to check just to make sure there's no issues, and it seems that we are fine. All right, I can take that out and just see if there's anything coming up. Let's put that caption up so that we know where we are. Well, let's start with a prayer, and we will get straight into it. Father in heaven, I just want to ask that you'll please guide us as we study and as we reflect and as we bounce off on each other, off of each other on this chapter. Help us to bring forth treasures and store them up to pass on to others in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. All right. Well, do you want to do one verse at a time then?
Sounds good.
Okay. You want to read the first verse?
Sure. So this is Proverbs chapter 1. A soft answer to a wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Okay. I'm just gonna. It seems, at least on my side, you might be a little bit quietish. I'm just gonna turn your volume up a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So this one, a soft. What do you get out of this one, Kendall?
Well, just the value. Taking a calm approach. It comes to conflict.
Yeah, so mine says a gentle response. So it's not just soft in the way you deliver it verbally, but it's soft in the whole repose that you take. So soft mannerisms, because what we say is only a small percentage of what we communicate. So it's soft body language, soft tone, as well as soft words.
Yeah.
But a harsh word stirs up wrath. Yeah. So, yeah, that's something I would say. Like, you can say the right things, but with a body tone, like a tone and a body language that's kind of, giving a much harsher reality. Like clenching your teeth, going, "It's fine."
Really.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Verse 2. The tongue of the wise treats knowledge correctly, but the mouth of the fool spouts out folly. Okay, kind of one of those self-evident ones that I've been mentioning, at least to where I'm at, and maybe once upon a time they weren't self-evident. These types of to me, but the tongue can spout out wisdom / knowledge, or it can be folly. And we've known each other long enough that we've both seen both of those sides coming out of
from most of us.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Verse 3.
Yep.
The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good.
What do you get from that?
I guess there's some comfort in that. For me, I think God's watching over all events.
Hmm.
And think if you've got a person that's what sort of a belief you're fostering in the sense that you want to know that God's desire thing.
Apparently, it's echoing terribly on your end.
Oh, okay.
Have you got a headphones or something you can plug in?
Yeah.
Okay, go and do that. Yeah, like there's a one of the things to me that comes out of that is it's comforting, but also there's caution to it. There's a real caution that the eyes of the Lord are in every place, and they're watching those, keeping watch on those who are evil and those who are good. So, we often act as if there is no audience to our actions, but we have an audience, and it's the King of the universe, and he's it's like a reality TV show that's going on everywhere. Am I, just for those who are watching, am I also echoing, or was it just Kendall? Is it still echoing now? You can drop a note, or you can message through. We've got the verse 4. Okay, you're back.
Yep.
Speak.
Verse 4.
Verse 4. Yes, go verse 4.
Gentle tongue, tree of life, perverseness, and it breaks the spirit.
Okay. No, I'm not. Okay, so I'm not echoing. It was just you, and I think it sounds a little bit better on my end. So hopefully that's sounding better for everyone. So yeah, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue breaks the spirit. Mine says. What did yours say?
So two versions.
Okay.
God, as a tree, keeping words but dishonest words crush the spirit.
Okay, dishonest words crush the spirit. All right. It still says there's an echo. I'm wondering if it's feeding back through my speakers here. I don't know how to resolve that in the short term. Actually, I'm going to go off, and if you want to just comment on that, I will see if I can. I actually have a couple of things I could do.
So, just looking at verse 4, again, it's sort of a theme that's mentioned in verses 1 and 2, really, in the sense that a gentle tongue seems to be a bit of a theme for at least the beginning of the chapter. But there's dishonesty or perverseness with it, with the two different words that are used in the different translations I've got here. They crush the spirit or break the spirit. And I think that I can certainly speak from experience that has had a negative effect, to know that potentially someone's misrepresenting you in what you've said, or straight up lying to your face. And I think in verse 6, sort of on the same theme. Sorry, I've skipped verse 5. Sorry.
Okay, I'm back. Hopefully that sounds a bit better.
A fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent.
Okay, I've just come back on, and I'm just waiting to see if someone... Can you hear me, Kendall? Yep. Just waiting to see. I've got someone messaging me to see how it's going. It's okay. I'll have to invest in some headphones, I think, but that's okay. Keep going. Verse. I've turned it down a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So over to verse 6. In the house of righteous there is much treasure, but trouble befalls the income of the wicked.
Okay, so I'm just going to mute myself every time you're talking. That's probably going to be the best way for tonight. So it's, in the house of the righteous is abundant wealth, but the income of the wicked brings trouble. So obviously the income of the wicked is from ill-gotten means, and so the trouble that it brings is the consequences of that, would you say?
Yeah, and I think there's I don't know, there's sort of, I guess there's encouragement built into some of these verses that are sort of implied in the sense that there's an implication in the sort of the positive and then the negative that the fool or the perverse tongue or the evil, that they will reap a reward that's befitting the way that they've approached things, in contrast to people that are gentle of tongue or that are being watched over by God.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, verse 7. Let's get to 7. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, not so the heart of fools. So there's lips contrasted with heart here. The lips of the wise are spreading knowledge, but the heart of fools is not spreading knowledge, so it's obviously spreading folly. And so I don't know if there's anything with that contrast, because out of the mouth comes the heart. From the heart flows the things of the mouth anyway. So it could just be parallels there with lips and heart. But it is an interesting point that folly comes from from the heart. So does wisdom. Wisdom and folly are both implanted in the heart there.
Yeah, so it's not just what you're saying, but also the motivation of where that's coming from.
Yeah, the principles that you build upon. That's right. Okay, you do the next one.
Okay, so verse 8. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is acceptable to him. Now, the first thing that springs to mind for me would be Cain and Abel, really.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that comes to me, and also Nadab and Abihu, who bring the perverse offering, and so you've got like the sacrifices of the wicked. They are out of there's a difference between religiosity and religion. Like there's a difference between doing it for show versus like the prayer of the upright. It pleases him because it is genuine. God wants us to come to him genuinely, not just come to him because it's a show. And so
that comes back to the heart thing again, like the previous verse.
Hi Bronwyn, I see you're here. There's a few watching. Verse 9, Yahweh abhors the way of the wicked, but he loves those who pursue righteousness. Another one of those self-evident ones here. The way means that, like when we're talking the way in Scripture, it's the working or it's the path, it's the things that they do. Not God doesn't hate a person. He hates the actions that we might take that are evil, and so he hates the way of the wicked, and he loves those who pursue righteousness. Righteousness being like this has got to be framed in relational terms. Righteousness is uplifting our fellow man, if you will.
Yeah, it's about the aim or the it's a pursuit, right? So I can see that as being encouraging, that if you're aiming for the right things, then that's something that God loves. Or you are someone that God loves if you're aiming for the right.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, take the next one.
There is severe discipline for him who forsakes the way. Whoever hates reproof will die. Happy on there.
Yeah, like this one and these, severe discipline. It's cause and effect. A lot of these are. We've had some that are talking about discipline as something that the wise people love, but this is severe discipline. This is talking about people who abandon the way, and the only hope back is for severe discipline, which is not arbitrary. It's linked to the abandoning of the way. When you abandon the way, it will bring consequences that will, if you heed them, will be self-corrective.
Yeah, so it comes with instruction. Reproof is there to get you back on the right path. So, hating reproof, I would assume that means you're not going to follow it, would mean it's sort of somewhat inevitable consequence.
Yeah, and death is the consequence of not getting back on the way, getting back on the path. It's, I think of, Pilgrim's Progress and Christian, and he leaves the path at one stage, but he needs to get back on the path because it's the path that leads to the heavenly kingdom.
Yeah, and I can see that as being, let's say someone calls out to you and they're like, "Hey, you're lost." You literally got off the path when you out in the bush or something like that. And you're like, the path's over this way. And if you willfully ignore that, then, it's not the same as sort of making an honest mistake, because you've rejected efforts to come back.
Yeah, right. Well, this one starts with this next one starts with kind of the same sort of somber beginning. Death and destruction are before Yahweh. How much more the hearts of humans? And so, before means in front of. That means that God is God is sovereign over death and destruction, because He, He's the creator. He's also the uncreator. And so if death and destruction are within God's purview and what He's looking at, how much more the hearts of humans? So it's one of those things where you go, okay, we know that God's in control of these things, but He's also wants to be in the hearts of people, and much more so. It's one of those much more so type things.
Which I guess for me brings to mind, I think there's a quote of Jesus where He talks about the lilies of the field and how much more He then, cares about us, or sparrows and humans. I think it's got that same kind of a feel to it.
Yeah, right. And this is because, we are the pinnacle of his creation. I mean, the world was created to be habitable by humans. So, like, the whole point of it was for us to be here. And so, all of those other things He cares about, but He cares more about us. And death and destruction, they're consequences and outcomes for the wicked. And he's over that, but he would much prefer, he'd much prefer to see hearts saved and hearts, in submission to Him. Okay, you go with verse 12 there.
Yeah, so verse 12, we've got, a scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise. I think that kind of reminds me of verse 2. I think we're kind of along the same theme. And when we were first starting for tonight, it sort of I was reminded of, I don't know if people are familiar with the term, the Dunning-Kruger effect. But,
explain it for us.
Well, I'll do a brief paraphrase, but just that those that aren't aware, they don't know enough about a topic, tend to overestimate their expertise in a subject. And conversely, people that are very knowledgeable in an area are just that much more aware of how much they still don't know. So you get a sort of overlap where people kind of might not be the experts they think they are, while people that tend to be very, very knowledgeable in the area have a bit more humility on that topic.
Yeah, and the Dunning-Kruger effect, it relates to 1/4 of the Johari window. Are you familiar with the Johari window?
No, I'm not.
And so the Johari window is a window where you've got one like, so it's a window, so there's 4 quadrants, and one quadrant is things that are known to you and known to others. There's things that are not known to you but are known to others. There are things that are known to you but are not known to others, and there are things that are not known to you and are not known to others.
All right.
And
Yep.
so, the Dunning-Kruger effect is really relating to those things that you don't know,
That you don't know. Yeah.
but you seem to want to talk about as if you do know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it's got a sort of parallel with the scoffer. It's someone who sort of assumes that they have the knowledge, but they don't actually.
Yeah, and that comes, there's pride in that. When we see these proverbs about the scoffer, there's, it assumes pride, because it's not just ignorance. It's bold, bold, blatant in ignorance. It's loud ignorance of something, and they don't want to be corrected because they don't think they need it.
Yeah, no, they're not going to the wise. Someone that had a bit of humility on the subject would be like, well, there's more for me to learn.
Right. Verse 13, a joyful heart makes the face cheerful, but by a painful heart the spirit is broken. Well, I mean, the emotions are seen in our faces, and this is not necessarily one, like, we're going to have, Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There's a time for mourning and a time for joy and things like that. So a joyful heart, you'll see it on the face. It reminds me of Nehemiah, where he's really, really trying to keep like a very stable face before the king, before Artaxerxes, but he's been fasting for I think it was 3 weeks, and come back, and he was fasting for 3 weeks, really, really wanting to keep it from the king that he was fasting over this matter, and he comes and comes to, he's the cupbearer for the king, and the king still is able to read it in his face that he's got these concerns. And he says, what's wrong with you, and this is scary because you can't be downcast around the king. And so he says a quick prayer and he states his case, and he's given leave to go. So we can't help in some ways to show what's on our mind. By a painful heart the spirit is broken. That also reminds me a little bit of Job there as well. You want to take 14?
Yep. So the heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly.
So this is kind of what we were talking about: scoffers versus the wise. The wise continually seek to learn. What wisdom comes with humility, so that you continually seek more. But the mouth of fools is fed on its own. What comes out of it? You're eating. you're eating whatever you're putting out.
Yeah, and that reminds me of sort of the stereotypical comment section, whether it's on a website or YouTube or on Facebook or something like that. But I think everybody's familiar with the way that can go.
Yeah, definitely. It tends to be kind of negative feedback loop. Yeah. Okay, all the days of the afflicted are bad, but one with a cheerful heart has a continual feast. All the days of the afflicted are bad, but one with a cheerful heart has a continual feast. I think this is kind of talking about, not just a person, not just a person who's afflicted by trouble, but someone who identifies with the trouble that they're in. And you probably, there's probably people out there who know someone like this or have been in this at some point. I know I have when I was in depression, and you're just like, when you're in that depressed state, just everything that's happened is clouded by the mindset and the blinders that you have on during that time. But
conversely to that, yeah,
when you have a cheerful heart, you can have a continual feast no matter what is happening around you.
Mm-hmm.
What does yours say for that one?
Yeah, well, the one version has with cheerful heart has a continual feast, and the other, I said, every day is hard for those who suffer, but a happy heart is like a continual feast. So
yeah, so we need to.
It comes down to kind of your attitude towards things that happen to you, which I feel,
yeah,
that rings true.
Yeah, like I mean, we have we don't necessarily have control over what is going to come at us, but we do have a control about what we do with our mindset.
Yeah, your reaction to the events that happen can make all the difference.
Well, proaction versus reaction, and we often
response. Yeah.
Okay. Verse 16 is yours.
Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble without it. Does that sound right? I'm just thinking there might actually be a typo there.
Mine says, better is a little with the fear of Yahweh, but great wealth and turmoil with it. So turmoil that comes with the wealth.
Yeah.
And so, it's better to have a little of wealth and things like that, but have fear of Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Which we've seen from the beginning of this Proverbs. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. It's that respect. It's that acknowledgement of Yahweh's presence and existence. It's better to have that little. I guess to come at it from one of those modern day Christian sayings or quotes. It's nothing plus Jesus equals everything.
Okay.
So you've got you can have nothing. But if you've got Jesus, you've got everything. Yeah. Okay, mine is for 17 says, better a meal of vegetables where there is love than a fattened ox when there is hatred. Okay, so better a meal of vegetables where there is love than a fattened ox. Okay, so like obviously now I'm a vegetarian, but I do remember meat tastes great. And so what it's saying is, you can have the delicacies, you can have all of the
finer foods, and if you're having it in poor company or with turmoil in your life, far better to have a more modest meal in a loving environment.
Yeah. It looks like we've got someone on YouTube following Barney Rubble, which is he's talking some. That's okay. These live comments they'll go away as soon as we're done. But good to have you joining us, Barney, and you can say whatever you want to say. That's fine. We want to stick to the Bible here, though. Yeah, like it doesn't matter what you're eating if the fellowship is love. Yeah. Go for 18.
Verse 18. A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention.
So this is kind of a little bit different. I mean, some of these are very similar. In verse 1, you had the harsh word stirs up wrath. A gentle word response turns away anger. Here, you've got the quick-tempered person stirs up dissension, but the one who is slow to anger calms a quarrel. So like that's the turning away of wrath. But so it's about being a peacemaker, someone who's slow to. And we talked about this last night, where like I was talking about this, where being slow to anger. I've put in this rule for myself of like a 72-hour period for shocking things. Not just that includes things that happen politically, that happen in the world. It's like I'm going to wait 72 hours before I react to this.
Just withholding judgment for a little while for it to kind of settle. Yeah. Maybe you get the less reactionary or less sensationalist version of what's going on.
And that's something that should be enacted within our personal, like when something happens, a stimulus in our personal lives, there is a. I mean, anger is something I've struggled with, a lot over my life. But there's a wisdom in saying, okay, I'm going to just do a countdown. That's one of the things they teach is count to 10 and see what happens. Kind of takes that edge off. But you can just go, okay, I need more. Like I need to walk away for a bit, or I need to go outside. I need to quit the room, sort of thing. These can be helpful.
It reminds me of kind of a truism when it comes to arguments, that the calmest person in the room wins. Which might not be true every time, but I think there's wisdom in that mentality. If you're approaching things to be like, I'm going to try and calmly put my point across, I think you've got a much better chance of having people at least understand your point of view.
Yeah, totally. So did you read that one, didn't you? No.
So we're up to 19.
The way of the sluggard is like a hedge of thorns, but the path of the upright is like a highway. The way of the, so sluggard here is a lazy person, is like a hedge of thorns, but the path. Okay, I'm kind of, I'm imagining, just from my head, I'm just going, okay. There's that scene in Lion King where I'm talking the original Lion King where. Simba is escaping from the Pride Lands after Mufasa dies.
He gets into all those swans and stuff.
Through the briars.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's a rough and like the hyenas go in there and they're like, I don't want to keep going. I don't want to chase him. He's going to die anyway. But so the way of the sluggard is going to be extremely prickly. But the path of the upright is like a highway, like it's just all steam ahead.
Verse 20, wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish man despises his mother.
Yeah, okay. Wise child, yeah.
Yeah, sounds very much like something from the Ten Commandments, really, doesn't it? Honor your father and mother.
Yes. And it's true. Victor said something really, really shocking to me today, and about me. Like he was very, very, very mean. And you're like, where did you even get that? Where did you even learn how to say that? and it's like it wasn't nice to hear. But how often do we say these things about our Father in heaven? And how often have we said it to our own parents? So, it's one of the, like, obviously he didn't mean it. He's not even 4, and he's just saying words. But
whether by intent or by neglect, we can, I guess, be a poor representative of our upbringing,
right.
be that spiritual or temporal.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of the phrase that kind of came to mind for me is like aim to be someone that your parents would be proud of. And I'm sure that has different flavor for different people, but
yeah, well, the way I've seen it, because like I chose to walk a path of being a believer when it wasn't my family's wishes, and everything that came with that. And I've often looked at that fifth commandment where it says, "Honor your mother and father." You can always go to in Ephesians or Colossians where it says, "Obey your parents in the Lord." Obey your parents in the Lord. But I've always looked at it as if your parents were at their optimal understanding of all things, you honor them by being the best person you can be, regardless of what their outlook and worldview is.
Yeah, okay.
And so being a Christian might be contrary to some people's will, or following a path of Jesus. However, if that person knew what you knew, you're actually honoring them in spite of them not knowing that that's honoring them.
And in a way, it's kind of I guess by the fruits of your journey, that'll sort of be borne out over a longer span of time, perhaps.
Yeah, right. Okay, verse 21. Folly is a joy to one who lacks sense, but one who has understanding follows an upright course. Okay, so folly. I've talked about how there's a difference between happiness and joy. So I'd actually prefer the word happiness here. So happiness kind of comes from the same root word as happening. So you're happy because something's happening. So folly brings a like a temporal and temporary joy or happiness to it. But it's slow, like it's easy, it's quick to fade. And as long as there's as long as the folly is ongoing, you have that joy. But once the folly fades, once and folly kind of requires an audience for it to be really satisfying. It's not something that like
it's something that's fun in the moment, I think, is but
the one who has understanding follows an upright course. And so that
sense in living a more disciplined life. What's the old fable? Is it the ant and the grasshopper? I think there's one of them's preparing for the winter and the other one's just out having fun because it's warm. Then when it comes to the season where it's a bit harder, they've got no food, and they're coming back hat in hand. I feel like the grasshopper is the one coming back, asking the ant for food.
Yeah, I think so. Is that one of Aesop's fables?
I think it might be Aesop.
Yeah. Aesop being another one of those proverb people, wisdom writers, but he uses obviously allegory very well. Okay, you got 22?
Yep. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed.
Right. So I know of a particular situation, can't talk about the situation itself, but that someone I care about is going through at the moment, who received bad counsel from the one person that they were consulting, and their plans are kind of on hold because of that. It's it's very important, and I've always I wouldn't say always, but I've from at least my late teen years, I've increasingly sought an array of people to bounce things off, because I've made so many stupid decisions, and that, when I'm just consulting one or two or just myself.
And I think even just that, even if not everybody is, going to give you the exact way to go. I think, having a variety of people that you run things by can really be a good leavening agent or tempering. You can kind of even it out from
right. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's okay, and in some ways, I like to get differing ideas just to kind of weigh the reasoning behind it. So I don't seek like the solution. Like I seek the working. In maths. In maths terms, I'm like, don't just tell me what you think is the solution here. Show me how you get.
Show me you're working. Yeah, and I'm not sure if this particular chapter is believed to be Solomon himself, but he's a king that would have had a lot of advisors. So, in that context, it kind of makes sense to me that he was saying it's better not to just have one favorite that you go to, a yes man.
Ironically, Solomon's son, and I talked about this when we were doing the intro to the Book of Solomon.
Okay.
He's writing this to his son, probably Rehoboam, who sucked at taking wide counsel. He literally split the kingdom because he wasn't listening to the people he should have.
Wise counsel,
Yeah. And so, these, and you're right. These are. I think it's not until chapter 20 that we get additional. So these are Solomon's Proverbs, at least as far as what the book is saying to us. So, yeah, no, I like that. It's talking about getting an abundance of advisors. Okay, verse 23. A person has joy in giving an appropriate answer, and a word at the right time. How good it is. Okay, yeah, like I love seeing the light bulb in someone go off when someone's come to you with a question, and you've just kind of answered it, and you've seen the light go on. And I've seen the joy in other people when they've taught me, and I've had that same response. So there is a real talking about the joy of folly. This is like something that's even deeper. This is something that you can go back and you can go, oh man, I feel really like that experience sticks with you.
Yeah, it is. It is a joy to, be part of someone having a breakthrough or an epiphany on something that they're really stuck on. Even if you're not the one that provides the answer, just being there to kind of move that process along. Maybe they come up with the idea themselves, but having had someone to bounce ideas off can certainly make a big difference.
Totally. So, and it's not just a right answer to a conundrum that might be a mental conundrum. Hey, Willie, it's good to see you watching as well. Willie Malga's watching, or at least at the moment. And Dexter's watching, and we've got Sharon. Good to see you all there. But it's it's like when someone's trying to navigate a crossroads in their life, and you can provide something that is helpful. Yeah, you can then look on it and go, "Hey, I was a part of that." And it's not in a like a prideful sense. It's kind of, well, not in a bad prideful sense. I think you can actually have pride. There is a place for pride in your work, a pride in someone excelling. You can be proud for someone excelling. I'm proud of my son a lot. That's not an evil pride. That's an appropriate pride that you can have. And then you can just go, hey, I was there when that at that crossroads in that person's life.
Yeah.
Okay, you go with verse 24.
The path of life leads upward for the prudent, that he may turn away from Sheol beneath. Prudent or prudence is not a word that you hear too much anymore. I must admit, I'm trying to think of a better alternative. I'm just trying to sneak a look at the other version and see if they've picked something that's all right. So they've used wise people, but
so mine has wise people, and
yeah.
Prudence is, what would be a synonym that we could use? Like, I mean, we don't use it that often today. I think maybe, like, I'm thinking efficacious is probably.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look, and saying acting with or showing care and thought for the future.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense in that context. And the path of life is talking about over the long term. Someone that has a track record of making wise decisions over time and thinking about what's going to be a good decision for the future as well as just for today. That's going to steer them away from.
Right. So what I'm seeing is I'm what's jumping at me is the trajectory. The trajectory of the wise person is upward, and that's that's a growth trajectory.
Yeah. The benefits are cumulative over time of like sticking to making prudent decisions.
Yeah, compounding. One wise decision compounds and makes the next one easier, and because the ultimate, like, without wisdom, our natural bent with being born into a sinful world with sinful natures is downward. So wisdom is that key to avoiding where we would trend without it.
I think I don't know if it's really in the verse or if I'm just sort of thinking about it as we've been talking. I feel like there's an element of kind of conscious effort to make good choices. There's an intimation there that kind of, if you just do things by default, that's a downward path. Folly, fools, those scoffers, these are people that are just kind of going with first thing that comes into their head, or whims, or following people that aren't giving them good advice. But to turn away from that path, to follow God, does take a level of effort on the part of the righteous or on the part of the wise.
Right.
And I think we've all been in situations where it would have been easier to do the other thing, but you have a sense that the right thing, even though it's tougher at that time to do it, is the better option.
So you're looking at uphill being like it's tougher as well.
Yeah. I guess in a literal sense that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I think that, and there's that's like an ongoing thread through the book of Proverbs, which is that you actually have to put in the effort. The sluggard, they kind of go nowhere, but you actually have to put in effort. But the effort is the reward. The effort itself is the reward, and brings the reward. Yeah. Okay. 25. We're on the home stretch now. 25. Yahweh tears down the house of the proud, but he maintains the boundaries of the widow. So he tears down the house of the proud. This is kind of within the context of ancient Near Eastern and particularly Israelite, like the allotments that they have. So that tearing down the house of the proud is talking about someone who is resisting God, and who also is passing that on to the children. So tearing down the house means the whole family,
household.
Yeah, we've seen that we see that in the Old Testament especially, where certain kings, at least in the northern kingdom of Israel, like the dynasty gets wiped out and he gets a new dynasty to replace it. He did that with Saul. Saul kind of got wiped out. There was Mephibosheth, but Mephibosheth, we don't know that there was a long, line of descendants through Mephibosheth. We do know that it kind of fizzled because Mephibosheth was like the last one of the Saul dynasty, but he maintains the boundaries of the widow. This is like the person who is needy. God is interested in them. God's always interested in the person who is downtrodden, and an example of that would be the Naomi Ruth story.
Yes,
where she, God maintained that. It's interesting in that, and it's not something that I think I've only once heard someone bring this up, but when Boaz chose to marry Ruth, and the offspring of that wasn't Jesse, it was the Obed. Obed. So Obed wouldn't have actually been in our genealogies that we read, we see Boaz, Obed, but Obed would have, in the time frame, would have been counted as the offspring of Ruth's husband.
Was it
Milcah or something like that? Whoever Ruth's husband had been, Naomi's son, that's who Obed would have counted as the descendant of.
Yeah.
And it's that Levirate marriage sort of thing.
He's taking that on.
Boaz comes in as the, nearest kin to take that on, so that
that line continues.
That line continues. Yeah. That line continues. So, God does maintain the boundaries of the widow and of that family. All right, you go.
The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but gracious words are pure.
Yeah, mine says pleasant words. So gracious words, pleasant words. So this is just saying what God. Again, it's God abhors or hates the plans. It's not the wicked themselves. He hates the things that they do. And pleasant or gracious words are pure. When it says pure there, what does it say? Pleasant words are pure. So some English versions add to him to make the connection to the first part, and that's how I was reading it in my head. They're pure to him, because God, and we talked about this a couple of days ago. God is an emotional God, and so he has things that make him happy and make him sad, and this is one of those Proverbs that tells us, hey, there's things that can grieve the heart of God, which is the plans of the wicked, and there are things that make him, that bring him joy, which is the pleasant words.
And I think that harkens back to verse 20 as well. A wise son makes a glad father. If you think of God as our father, gracious words are pure to him, as you were saying. That's something for him to be, righteously proud of.
Yes. Yeah. Verse 27, the one who is greedy for gain troubles his household, but whoever hates bribes will live. So the person who's greedy for gain, obviously in the context of without respect for where it's coming from, they bring trouble. Ill-gotten gains.
Yeah, and this is an integrity kind of a verse.
But it's speaking from the point of view that when you lack, like when you walk a path that lacks integrity, there are consequences that come from that.
Yeah.
And so, it troubles the household. Whereas a person who hates bribes, who hates those things that are lacking integrity, they will live. And it doesn't just mean they will live, but they will live with abundance. They will, they'll thrive.
Yeah, I think unjust gains. It's like it's tempting to take that easy cash, perhaps, but it comes with, I don't know, expectation if you got it from a source that maybe isn't.
There's always strings attached.
Strings attached, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and those strings bring trouble. Hey, Mum, I see Mum's watching, and I see Jared's watching. Good to see you, Jared. Good to see you, Mum. Okay, I think you're the next one.
Oh, yes. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things.
So it's again that pausing to consider versus stream of consciousness.
Yeah,
that comes from
the wisdom of restraint.
And sometimes something doesn't ever have to be said. Sometimes you can look at something and go, you know what? I'm just gonna answer by not. I mean, look at Jesus. Like I think of the example where, and it's not that John the Baptist is this, like obviously John the Baptist is the greatest of the prophets, and he sends his disciples while he's in prison to Jesus and he's had the evidence that Jesus is the one. He's seen the Holy Spirit come down. He's heard the words, "This is my son, beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased." He's seen all of that, but he still sends them and says, "Hey, can you just reassure me? I'm not doing well right now. Can you reassure me that you're the one?"
Yeah.
And Jesus is just like, "Go and sit over there," and he just does stuff, he's like, he doesn't even answer. He just says, "Go and tell John what you've seen."
Yeah.
It's
like the results speak for themselves, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think also one of the things that sort of popped into my head with ponders how to answer is, the benefit in saying you don't know if you don't have an answer for a question, or being intellectually honest enough to say I don't have enough to give a fair response to that. Maybe I can get back to you.
Yeah, and I think you've got to be able to say I don't know, and I'll look into it. Because saying I don't know, all that tells someone is okay, you're honest enough to say you don't know, but if someone has come to you hoping that you can help them, it shows the interest in them and in their question to say, hey, I'll look into that a little bit more. And I don't, and even if you like you're familiar with it but you're kind of rusty on it, say hey, I'm gonna need to refresh that.
And I think to come back to the the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. I think if you go into advice hastily and give people an answer off the cuff, ill prepared, you might send them on the wrong track, and then you've done so much worse for them than if you held off giving a response until you looked into it a bit more.
And it comes back to that verse 23. A person has joy in giving an appropriate answer. You want to give that answer that is well thought out and applicable for the person. I know people who they tend to be kind of trigger, they tend to have trigger responses. So someone might ask a question, and in that question will be a couple of words that are
a phrase that sets the default answer off.
Yeah, sets a default answer, but it's been framed within a question where that default answer is unsatisfactory, and I'm listening, going, I know this is not helpful. I know that this is either redundant or it's presuming the other person to have the same platform that you have, and so you kind of need to be really thoughtful about the person's question. And go, okay, what's their platform? What's their where are they coming from with this?
Yeah, and that shows that sort of benefit in asking good questions as well to clarify.
Okay.
Verse 29.
Is that me or you?
That's you.
Okay. Yahweh is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. So there's a sense in which this is true, and there's a sense in which this is not true. The wicked, if they were to ever turn around, they'd find Jesus right there. He's far from them in the sense of their trajectory. But Jesus is as soon as they turn around, they'll find Jesus there, ready to help them back. If they repent, that turn around. So he's far from them in the sense that they're heading in a direction that is away from him. but he's not. So he hears the prayer of the righteous. So I mean, that's how I would say that one. Like he's far from them in their trajectory, versus anything else. Yep. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you've covered that one really. I guess all I would add is that the wicked could, for argument's sake, turn to righteousness just by turning around, like you said.
Yeah, and if they're facing God, I mean, if you're looking at this idea of prayer, the Bible does talk about He doesn't hear the prayers of the person who is in like a willful state of disobedience and rebellion, and so He can't hear. Like, I find it hard to hear when someone is speaking that way. Like you're speaking away from me. Like, turn and talk to me. And so verse 30 is yours.
The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and good news refreshes the bones. I like that. I think there's a sort of obvious truth in, like, good news is refreshing. Like, we're far too prone towards sharing the bad bits with each other. Seeking that out, or being drawn towards bad news.
Yeah, and that tends to be our proclivity for gossip, our proclivity for drama, our proclivity for I don't know, contention. But when I'm a words of affirmation person, that's my love language. So I hold on to whatever's said to me, good and bad. But it doesn't take a lot of good things to undo all of the, a lot of the bad. But if you keep, if there's constant criticism, it's draining.
I like the visual that comes with refreshes the bones.
Yeah,
it's like it's warming on the inside. Like tea.
Yep. Okay, the person who hears the reproof that leads to life is at home among the wise. Okay, so just
I think that really comes back to what we talked about earlier in the chapter, is that being willing to listen, being willing to heed instruction, or ask for guidance in the first place, ask for advice, is on the right path to wisdom, for sure.
Well, I like that, at home among the wise. You're in a family. You're in a family of the wise, and how cool does that?
Well, I think it also, to me, it places the descriptions that have been given all throughout the chapter, and I guess all throughout Proverbs, really, it places wisdom in its correct context, in the sense that, if you look at other people telling you what to do, as, I don't want to listen to that. They're just, what a downer. They're trying to have fun. To recognize it for what it is, that, like, this is good instruction, this is what I should be learning, this is what I should be surrounding myself with. I think that's, again, coming back not just to action, but to motivation and intent.
So I'll expect you to give me far more weight in future when I'm sharing stuff with you. No,
yeah, you can be one of my many advisors, so I succeed.
Yes, well, we've been that for each other, but yeah, I've seen with you sometimes where there's a wariness, of a lot of people who are well-meaning, who are sharing advice, and sometimes it's because it's not the advice you've wanted. I've been the same,
and I think you can sometimes sense that part of why you're reluctant to listen is because it's right. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly.
But ties into the next verse pretty neatly, actually. Whoever ignores instruction despises himself, but he who listens to reproof gains intelligence.
Yeah, so like, if you're ignoring, I think this is one of those twofers. Occasionally, you see the two proverbs that are like they're together for a reason. Or two verses. It's one bigger proverb, like so. It's one. So the person who hears reproof that leads to life is at home among the wise, but the one who refuses correction despises himself. So, why do they despise themselves? Well, because they're actually
doing themselves a disservice by not
they're actively damaging themselves. It's like it's a form of character self-harm, like it's not physical self-harm, but it's setting yourself up for failure.
And again, I think that sort of is a failure to recognize the advice for what it is, which is an apt answer. People are wanting your good if they're giving that advice. It's rare that people that you look up to are going to willfully try and give you a bum steer.
One of the things that we've seen in Proverbs is that there are people who are in that folly.
Would like to see you fail, yeah.
Well, no, they don't want to see you fail. They don't care. They're not thinking about success and failure. They're thinking of the moment. They're thinking of the folly. And if you hang around with those sort of people, they're not going to give you advice except for, what's the next spontaneous thing that we can do that's going to be fun, But, there's the people that want your good are usually people like that, have a mentor role in your life. It could be parents. It could be
that speak gentle words, that speak.
That speak with a sense of wanting to see you thrive in 5, 10, 20 years, eternity. That's the I guess the makeup there is wanting that long-term good. Okay, let's land this. The fear of Yahweh provides wise instruction, and before honor comes humility. This is kind of like a summary of most of what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
The fear of Yahweh, it provides wise instruction because it's a fountain. Like the fear of Yahweh, acknowledging Yahweh, that's a starting point. And I guess, there are people who are wise, but they don't have that fear of Yahweh. And so their instruction is only going to be, like I'm talking wise as in, like they can see cause and effect and stuff like that, but they're missing a big chunk. Like there are people that you can go to and you can get advice. There can be counselors and stuff, but if they don't acknowledge Yahweh, you've got to wait that at a lower. Now, can God speak through them? Of course He can. God's wisdom is filtered through many people. Through many avenues, but that's got to be a starting point. And the other part here is before honor comes humility. You can't skip straight to the honor. You can't skip straight to that favored status. You've got to do it through self examination and being open to that reproof that allows for correction.
I think on a fundamental level as well, that core practice of acknowledging or submitting to another authority, particularly the authority of God, I think is a practice that puts you in good stead to realize that that's how you can move forward with honor in life, is to recognize that you're not the expert in everything.
Yeah totally. Well, would you like to close with prayer?
Yeah, sure. So just before we close, I just thank you to everybody that watched live, and for those that are going to be watching this in some time. I don't know when these go up, maybe straight away, but thanks heaps for following along. This was day 15, chapter 15 of Proverbs. I'll just say a prayer to close. Lord, thank you first of all for the opportunity to jump on here with my good friend Brendan. May we continue to be on the journey of wisdom together, and may you bless the continued efforts in going through the book of Proverbs for the rest of January. Pray a blessing on those that are listening along, and a blessing on those that watch this in the future also. In your name, amen.
Amen. And again, thank you for everyone who's joined us. Tomorrow we'll be at the halfway point, chapter 16. So if you have not joined us with this journey through Proverbs so far, you're able to do 2 chapters a day and you'll catch up by the end, or you could do 15 chapters, or just join for where we're at, because the Proverbs that we're into at the moment are kind of they're not thematic, they're just kind of a jumble that's in there, and we're just going through them, pulling out life lessons and starting our year with probability multipliers for success. But Proverbs are not promises; they're probability factors, and that's why we're looking at this. I've been enjoying it. I've been having fun with this. It's been great to have you, Kendall.
Thanks very much.
So we'll just close the stream, and I'll see the rest of you guys tomorrow. Might have you back again before the end of this is over. I'll fix the I'll fix the situation with the echo. I think there's a few things that I'm still learning about this platform, but I'll get the headphones, and that will probably resolve that to a large degree. Have a great night, everyone, and a great day tomorrow for those who watch this after the fact. It's been great to see you. I see Emily, you've joined us towards the end here. I hope you all have a great night.